Karoline Leavitt wasted no time. "You've sold this country on lies, Jasmine," she began, her words cutting through the courtroom like a blade. The room went still as she stared at Jasmine Crockett with an intensity that was almost palpable. The air was thick with the unspoken tension between the two, their rivalry in full swing. Jasmine Crockett, unflinching under Karoline's fiery gaze, didn't even blink. She sat back in her chair, arms folded, exuding an air of calm superiority. A faint smirk tugged at the corners of her lips, as if she was already anticipating what Karoline would say next. But no one could have predicted the bombshell Karoline was about to drop. With a swift motion, Karoline leaned forward, her eyes locked onto Jasmine's. "You've been playing us all for fools, hiding behind your rhetoric. But the truth is out now," she spat, her voice ringing with fury. "And I'm about to expose everything. You think you're untouchable, Jasmine, but I'm taking you down." The room held its breath. Every eye was fixed on the two women, waiting for the storm to break. There was no turning back now. Karoline had drawn the line, and she wasn't about to back down. Jasmine's smirk faded just a fraction. Karoline had struck a nerve, but she was quick to recover, adjusting her posture as she met Karoline's gaze with a cold, calculating look. "You're desperate, Karoline. This is nothing but a last-ditch attempt to salvage your career," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Karoline's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that," she shot back, before turning to the judge. "Your Honor, I request the floor. This ends now." Her voice had dropped to a commanding tone, one that demanded attention, and she moved toward the podium with purpose. The judge, sensing the gravity of the situation, granted her request. The entire room was now on edge, the air electric with anticipation. Karoline was poised to make her move, one that would either propel her to victory or end her career in an instant. With one last glance at Jasmine, Karoline began her final argument. "Jasmine, you have lied to this court, you've manipulated the truth, and now the time has come for accountability. You can't hide behind your promises any longer. The evidence is here, and it's undeniable." Karoline slammed a folder down onto the table, her words slicing through the room like a weapon. Jasmine's face went pale. She had expected an attack, but not like this. She could feel the weight of Karoline's words pressing down on her. The room was silent, save for the sound of Karoline's steady breath as she continued. "Your lies have caused real harm, and now it's time for you to pay the price. I've got the proof, Jasmine. This is your moment of reckoning." For the first time, Jasmine seemed rattled. She glanced nervously at the folder, then back at Karoline, her confidence slipping. The room waited for her response, but there was nothing she could say. Karoline had just delivered the most powerful blow of the entire case. The judge's gavel came down sharply, signaling the end of the session. Everyone in the room knew that Karoline's words had struck a fatal blow to Jasmine's credibility. In the span of 30 seconds, Karoline had turned the tables and set the stage for a dramatic downfall. Jasmine Crockett's career, once thought invincible, had just begun its rapid unraveling. The crowd sat in stunned silence, knowing that the next move would be a game-changer, and the outcome of this battle had shifted irreversibly in Karoline's favor. Jasmine Crockett sat frozen for a moment, her eyes darting between Karoline and the folder she had slammed down with such authority. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. It was clear that Karoline had just made her most devastating move yet, one that not only threatened her opponent's reputation, but also threatened to destroy everything Jasmine had worked for. There was no denying it now. Karoline had exposed a vulnerability, one that could bring her career to an end in a heartbeat. Jasmine's mind raced as she grappled with the fact that Karoline had struck so decisively. She had been prepared for this, hadn't she? She had been ready for the battle. But what Karoline had just done felt like a sucker punch, unexpected. Revelation that could shatter the carefully crafted image Jasmine had built over the years. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath shallow as she fought to maintain control. The eyes of everyone in the room were now on her, and she knew she had no choice but to respond. If she faltered now, it would be over. Karoline had made her move, and now it was Jasmine's turn to act. She forced herself to sit up straighter, trying to regain the composure she had worked so hard to perfect. But the sweat on her palms betrayed her. She could feel the eyes of the courtroom on her, waiting for her to make a move, waiting for her to either fight back or crumble under the pressure. Jasmine slowly turned her head to face the judge, her voice low but steady. "Your Honor, I request a moment to review the evidence presented," she said, trying to buy herself time. She wasn't going to let Karoline's words go unchallenged, not yet. She needed to regroup, to think of a way out. The judge, ever the professional, nodded in understanding but didn't let the tension dissipate. "Of course, Miss Crockett. You have the floor." Jasmine took a deep breath and turned back to face Karoline, who was standing tall, her posture radiating confidence. It was clear that Karoline wasn't just trying to win this debate. She was gunning for Jasmine's political life. The smirk Karoline wore as she watched Jasmine struggle only served to fuel Jasmine's frustration. But no matter how infuriating it was, she knew she couldn't let that smirk be the last thing she saw. Not when so much was on the line. She glanced once more at the folder. The contents had been prepared with meticulous detail, every piece of evidence meant to bolster Karoline's claims. It was as if Karoline had predicted this moment. Every fact, every figure, every accusation had been carefully crafted to leave Jasmine with no room to maneuver. But Jasmine wasn't about to give up without a fight. She had spent years building her career and her legacy, and she wasn't about to let Karoline take it all away in one fell swoop. The clock seemed to tick louder now, each second stretching longer than the last. Jasmine could feel the weight of the courtroom's gaze pressing down on her, but she refused to buckle. She couldn't, not after everything. Taking a steadying breath, she turned back to face Karoline, her gaze cold and unwavering. "You think you've won, Karoline?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You think you've uncovered something that will destroy me?" She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "You're wrong." The tension in the room skyrocketed as the words left Jasmine's mouth. She could feel the eyes of the entire courtroom shifting, the anticipation building. Jasmine's voice grew stronger with each passing second. "You've underestimated me. You've underestimated what I'm capable of. I didn't get to where I am by being careless or letting people like you push me around." She leaned forward, letting the energy of the room build to a crescendo. "I know exactly what you're trying to do, Karoline. You're trying to tear me down. You're trying to make me look like a villain. But the truth is, you're the one who's blind. You're the one who doesn't see the bigger picture. This isn't about me. This is about the people we're supposed to be fighting for." The room hung in the balance as Jasmine's words rippled through the crowd. Karoline's confidence wavered for a split second, and it was all the opening Jasmine needed. She wasn't backing down. "Not today. Don't think for 1 second that I'll let you manipulate the truth. Karoline," Jasmine continued, her voice now rising in intensity. "You've tried to paint me as something I'm not, and I won't let you get away with it." She gestured to the folder on the table. "That evidence you've presented, it's just a piece of the puzzle. But what you fail to realize is that there's so much more that you don't know. The truth isn't just one thing, Karoline. It's complex, and it's bigger than you can imagine." Jasmine could feel the shift in the room. Karoline's carefully laid out trap was starting to backfire. The audience, who had been on the edge of their seats, now seemed divided, unsure of who to believe. Jasmine had thrown down the gauntlet, and she was daring Karoline to follow through. But as Jasmine's words filled the room, Karoline's face remained impassive, her eyes never leaving Jasmine's. Karoline had been expecting this. She knew this moment would come. The final battle wasn't going to be won by words alone. It was going to be won by conviction. And Karoline had plenty of that. Jasmine's statement had shifted the momentum back in her favor for the moment, but Karoline had the last word. And when she spoke next, it would be the one to end it all. The courtroom buzzed with an energy that felt almost electric, as if the entire room had collectively taken a breath and was waiting for the storm to hit. Jasmine had made her stand, but Karoline wasn't about to back down. She knew this moment was her chance to drive the final nail into the coffin, to take control once and for all. As Jasmine finished speaking, Karoline's eyes narrowed, slightly cold, calculating, and unrelenting. She wasn't interested in petty back and forth or empty rhetoric. She was going to end this right here. Without missing a beat, Karoline stood and faced the room, her presence commanding the attention of everyone in the courtroom. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. She had prepared for this, and now it was her time to strike back. "Jasmine, you've made a mistake," she began, her voice ringing with authority. "You think you've got the upper hand, don't you? You've made a lot of noise about the truth, about the bigger picture. But what you don't seem to understand is that the truth you're clinging to is nothing more than a carefully constructed fantasy." She took a slow step forward, her eyes never leaving Jasmine's. "What you've done, what you've been hiding, will come to light. The people you've been deceiving, the way you've manipulated the system, the lies you've peddled to build your image. All of it is about to be exposed." Jasmine's face tightened, her lips pressing together as she braced herself. Karoline was relentless, and her words cut deep. It was clear now that Karoline was about to unleash everything she had kept in reserve. This wasn't just about political rivalry anymore. This was personal. Karoline wasn't just attacking Jasmine's credibility. She was targeting the very foundation of everything Jasmine had worked for. "You want to play the victim, don't you?" Karoline continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "You want to paint yourself as the one who's been wronged. But the reality is that you've built your career on the suffering of others. You've manipulated those you claim to represent. You've used them to get ahead while turning a blind eye to the very problems they face." The words rang in the air, hanging there like a challenge. The room seemed to lean in, waiting for Jasmine's reaction. But Karoline wasn't done. No, she had only just begun. "You talk about truth, about fairness, about lifting people up. But what have you actually done, Jasmine? What have you accomplished besides securing your own position, padding your pockets, and pushing your own agenda?" Jasmine's fists clenched under the table, her breath sharp as she fought to maintain control. Karoline's accusations were swift and brutal, each one hitting like a sledgehammer. It was almost too much. The truth, if it could even be called that, was terrifying. But Karoline wasn't finished. She wasn't even close. "What you don't get, Jasmine, is that people are tired. They're tired of politicians like you who say one thing and do another. They're tired of the empty promises and the hollow speeches. They want action. They want real change, not just more of the same from someone who claims to fight for them while secretly playing the game behind closed doors." The courtroom was now filled with an uncomfortable silence, as everyone waited for the backlash, for the inevitable retaliation. Jasmine could feel the heat rising within her, the pressure building as Karoline laid bare everything she had tried so hard to keep hidden. Her reputation, her credibility, her entire career was on the line. Every word Karoline spoke seemed to carve away at the facade she had spent so many years carefully constructing. The confidence she had walked into this courtroom with was now slipping, and the cracks were starting to show. Karoline wasn't finished yet. She took another step toward Jasmine, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous level. "You think you've won, don't you? You think you've somehow managed to turn the tables in your favor with your little speech. But the truth is, Jasmine, you're standing on the edge of a cliff. One wrong move, and it's over. You've played your cards, but you've shown your hand. And it's weak." Jasmine could feel the blood pounding in her ears, her pulse racing. The fight within her was starting to turn to desperation. She couldn't afford to lose this, not after everything. Not after all the years of climbing, all the sacrifices. If Karoline succeeded now, everything would come crashing down. But Karoline was relentless. She pressed on, her words like a slow, steady burn. People are waking up, Jasmine. They're seeing through the lies. They're seeing the truth for what it is, and they're not going to let you get away with it anymore. You've tried to protect yourself, tried to bury the skeletons in your closet. But this is the moment that changes everything. Jasmine's hands were shaking now, but she was determined not to let Karoline see her fear. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She couldn't let Karoline have the final word. Not here, not now. You think you've got it all figured out, Karoline? Jasmine shot back, her voice cutting through the tension. You think you've uncovered the great conspiracy? You think you've exposed me for what I am? You're wrong. You're making the same mistake every other person has made. You're underestimating me. The room seemed to hold its breath as the two women faced off, each locked in a battle of wills. The intensity was palpable, the stakes higher than ever. Karoline's smirk only grew wider. She had her target cornered, but she wasn't going to make the final move just yet. Not until she knew she had completely shattered Jasmine's confidence. Jasmine's words had momentarily rattled Karoline, but she wasn't done. She knew Jasmine was dangerous, but this was her moment to strike the final blow. And when she spoke next, it would be the one that broke Jasmine completely. The clock was ticking, and the moment of truth was fast approaching. Karoline's eyes locked onto Jasmine's, the tension between them now so thick it felt almost suffocating. The silence that followed was deafening. Karoline had struck hard, no doubt. But Jasmine was fighting back, her words sharp and defiant. It was clear now that the battle wasn't just about ideas or policies. It was personal. This was a war for dominance, a war that neither woman would let go without a fight. Karoline was so close to putting an end to it all, but Jasmine was a formidable opponent. For a brief moment, Karoline let the silence hang between them, savoring the discomfort in Jasmine's eyes. The smirk she wore was not one of arrogance, but of calculated patience. She knew that Jasmine was still holding on, still clinging to whatever last vestiges of power she could grasp. But Karoline also knew that everything Jasmine had built was teetering on the brink of collapse. Underestimate you? Karoline finally responded, her voice low but steady. Jasmine, I don't need to underestimate you. I've been watching you for months, studying every move you've made. Every misstep, every lie you've told, every person you've betrayed along the way, it's all right here. She gestured to the papers laid out before her, the evidence meticulously compiled. I've got the receipts. And they're damning. Jasmine bristled but didn't break eye contact. Karoline could see the anger bubbling just beneath the surface, but it was tempered by a thin layer of fear that was growing as Karoline continued to press. You keep talking about being underestimated, Karoline went on, her voice rising with each word. But it's not me who's underestimating you. It's the people who put their trust in you. They believed you, Jasmine. They believed in everything you said. But when they see what's really going on, when they see the dirty deals, the backroom promises, the corruption that's been festering under the surface, it's over. Your whole career? Gone in the blink of an eye. Jasmine's jaw tightened. She wasn't backing down. You think you can scare me with your threats, Karoline? You think you can win this battle by trying to tear me down? You're wrong. I've faced bigger challenges than this. I've fought against people like you my whole life. Karoline's eyes hardened, her expression unfazed. Oh, I'm not trying to scare you, Jasmine. I'm just showing you the reality you're too afraid to see. You've built your empire on lies, and now those lies are crumbling. You've gotten away with it for so long, but that stops today. People don't want your version of the truth anymore. They want honesty. They want transparency. They want leaders who don't use their power to get ahead, but who actually care about the people they're supposed to serve. The words hit like a sledgehammer. Jasmine opened her mouth to respond, but the words caught in her throat. She knew Karoline was right. She had spent so much time trying to control the narrative, trying to manipulate the system in her favor, that she had lost sight of the very people she was supposed to represent. She had become the thing she once despised, a politician who put herself first. But Jasmine wasn't ready to give up. "Not yet. You think you've got me cornered, don't you?" She shot back, her voice trembling slightly with emotion. "But you don't know the half of it. You don't know what I've had to sacrifice to get here, to get to this point. You don't know what it's like to fight tooth and nail, to claw your way to the top, only to have people like you trying to tear it all down." Karoline tilted her head, listening intently. For a moment, there was a flicker of something pity, perhaps. But it passed as quickly as it had come. "I don't need to know your story, Jasmine," Karoline replied, her voice hardening again. "What matters is what you've done with the power you've gained. What have you really done for the people who supported you? Have you made their lives better? Have you used your influence to actually change something? Or have you simply fed your own ego?" Jasmine's face flushed, and she could feel her control slipping. Karoline was right. She had been so focused on winning, so focused on the end goal, that she had forgotten why she had started in the first place. Her career, her future, it all seemed so fragile now, like a house of cards that was one breath away from collapsing. The weight of Karoline's words pressed down on her chest, suffocating her, making it harder to breathe. "You can pretend like you're some saint, Karoline," Jasmine said, her voice quieter now, tinged with frustration, "but you've got your own skeletons. Don't think I don't know about the deals you've made, the people you've walked over to get where you are. You're no better than me." Karoline's eyes narrowed, but she remained calm. "I'm not pretending to be a saint, Jasmine. I'm just someone who believes in the power of change, and change is coming. Whether you like it or not, the people are waking up. They're seeing you for what you really are." Jasmine was shaken now, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't have the answer. She didn't have the power to stop Karoline's onslaught. She had tried to manipulate the narrative, to twist the facts to her advantage, but Karoline had seen through it all. "You've made your move, Karoline," Jasmine said finally, her voice quieter now, tinged with a quiet desperation. "But we're not done yet. You've pushed me into a corner, but there's still one thing you haven't accounted for." She leaned in closer, locking eyes with Karoline. "I'm not going down without a fight. I'll do whatever it takes to protect everything I've worked for." Karoline's lips curled into a thin smile. "I wouldn't expect anything less," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "But it's too late. You've already lost." Jasmine's resolve faltered for a moment, but she quickly masked it with a scowl. She had no idea what Karoline had in store next, but one thing was clear: the game had changed. The final blow was coming, and it was going to be devastating. In the next few moments, everything would either be lost or solidified. Both women were locked in a battle for their careers, their legacies, their very futures. Only one would walk away victorious, and Karoline knew that, no matter how Jasmine fought, the end was already written. The hours dragged on, but neither Karoline nor Jasmine were willing to back down. It was more than a simple political showdown now. It had become an existential struggle, not just for their careers, but for their very identities. Karoline could feel the weight of every decision, every move she had made leading up to this moment, pressing heavily on her chest. This wasn't just about winning, it was about exposing the truth, no matter how many lives it would destroy along the way. She had seen the corruption, the dishonesty, the selfishness in the political system, and she wasn't going to let it slide any longer. But Jasmine wasn't the same naive, ambitious woman she had once been. She wasn't willing to let Karoline's accusations stand. For a long while, she had been playing a game where only the ruthless survived. Every move she made had been calculated, but somewhere along the way, the lines between right and wrong had blurred. She had justified her actions, convinced herself that the ends always justified the means. Now, though, with everything crumbling around her, she wondered if it had all been worth it. "You think you've got the high ground, don't you?" Jasmine spat, her voice bitter, as she stood to face Karoline once again. "You think you're above all of this? Above the compromises, the choices we all have to make to stay afloat in this game? You're just like the rest of us. You may have found your moment to shine, but it's all just smoke and mirrors." Karoline met her gaze, unwavering. "No, Jasmine. You don't get to manipulate the truth anymore. You've been using your position to control and deceive. This isn't about me or you, it's about the people you've hurt along the way." Jasmine's lip quivered, but she quickly masked the vulnerability. It wasn't like her to show weakness, especially not now. Not when she could still claw her way out of this mess. "You think you can just expose me and walk away victorious? You've underestimated me, Karoline. I still have connections. I still have allies who will protect me." Karoline shook her head. "You had those connections once. But the people who stood behind you, who believed in you, those people are starting to see the truth now. They're starting to realize that the person they trusted wasn't who you made them think you were. That's why this ends today." The room seemed to close in around them as the final words were spoken. There was no more room for bargaining, no more room for redemption. Karoline had won. Jasmine's shoulders slumped as she looked down, for the first time in years, at the life she had built and what it had become. The weight of her choices crashed into her. All the lives she had manipulated, the promises broken, the trust shattered, it all came flooding back, overwhelming her in an instant. But what was worse than the guilt was the knowledge that she was truly alone now. The world she had fought so hard to create for herself had crumbled beneath her feet, leaving her standing on the edge of ruin. She had used others, twisted the system for her own gain, but now there was no one left to fight for her, no allies, no team to support her in the final hours. The very people she had sold out now turned their backs on her. As the last of her defenses crumbled, Jasmine sank into the chair, her face pale. She had tried to play the game with fire and fury, but Karoline had been the one who had played it smarter. The people who had once been her supporters now saw her for who she truly was, a product of corruption, a politician who had sold her soul to the highest bidder. Karoline watched her for a long moment, no triumph in her eyes, just an acknowledgement of the battle won. There would be no celebrations, no grand speeches. This wasn't a victory that felt good, it was a necessity, a step towards something better, something cleaner for those who had been betrayed. Jasmine stood, finally looking Karoline in the eyes, and for the first time, she spoke with the kind of honesty that had long been buried beneath layers of pretense. "I thought I could outsmart everyone. I thought I could control the narrative, rewrite the story in my favor. But I didn't realize that you were the one telling the truth all along. I was too blinded by power, by greed. And now it's too late." Karoline didn't respond right away. She knew this moment wasn't about winning or losing. This wasn't about a public display of superiority. It was about something more important. It was about restoring integrity, about making sure the cycle of corruption didn't repeat itself. But as much as she had fought to expose the truth, she couldn't help but feel a quiet sadness for Jasmine. Not for her career, because that was lost, but for the woman she could have been, the one who had once believed in something greater than herself. "I didn't want it to end like this, Jasmine," Karoline said quietly, her tone softer now. "But you made your choices, and you have to face the consequences. I hope in time you'll find a way to do better." Jasmine's eyes watered, and she took a shaky breath, trying to regain control of herself. But she knew, deep down, that there was no coming back from this. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. There would be no dramatic showdown, no final hurrah. Karoline had done what needed to be done. The rest was out of her hands. It wasn't about justice anymore. It was about ensuring that the system didn't continue to feed on the broken promises of those like Jasmine. For Karoline, the end of this battle didn't feel like the end at all. There was more work to be done. She had exposed a truth, but truth alone wasn't enough to change the world. It was only the beginning. As the door to the room clicked shut behind them, Karoline was already looking ahead. Jasmine's career was over. But her journey was just starting. There was a long road ahead, full of new challenges and new adversaries. But Karoline was ready. She had made her move. Now it was time to rebuild. Jasmine's fall would be a hard one, but it would serve as a lesson for others. Trust wasn't something that could be bought, and power wasn't something that could be manipulated forever. For every crooked politician, there was someone like Karoline, someone who would fight for what was right. The game had changed, and Karoline Leavitt wasn't about to let it go back to what it was before.
Thank you for watching our channel Modern Stories. If you liked our video, you should subscribe for more amazing videos like this. Have a healthy and happy day. See you in the next one.